Hey NAI football fans, Cory Thorpe here with another edition of the NAIF Ball Podcast, powered by AdCraft USA, your custom apparel, merch, and uniform experts. Our friends at AdCraft have been with us for many years now. They've run web stores for us multiple times. These guys are NAI fans and family who are experts in the apparel and merchandise world. AdCraft allows you to take the hassle out of ordering. Let their knowledgeable design and customer service staff handle everything from hosting the store online, shipping the product, and helping your customers so you can get back to the game. Find them online at adcraftusa.com. Welcome into a new NAIF Ball podcast powered by AdCraft Custom Apparel and Merch, the best in the business since 1974. It has been so long since we have recorded the last episode. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's been a long week or two or three since we were last here.
Yeah,
Excited to be here.
right? I changed my shirt so you know it's a different day.
I definitely also changed my shirt.
Sure, we'll go with that. It's
Yeah.
the KCAC Kessinger, and guys, this is whew, there's some heavyweights in here, and
My head hurts from thinking of this conference.
it's the home office. The KCAC home office is not helped by the fact that Friends used to be poopy and is now not poopy. Um, that is, but we'll get there. Spoiler alert. We're going to start out with the Sterling Warriors, who, you know, having a first-year head coach, they still did better on both offense and defense, and were up 5 SP plus spots overall. That's not terrible after having some fun head coach escapades over last offseason.
Yeah, you definitely had a really good season on the defensive side of the ball, notably, but you also notably lose a lot of those guys. Your front seven is pretty diminished. You also have a few DBs that are out of the picture. On the offensive side of the ball, you bring back a lot of those guys. Ryan Stuckey, also notable there. But yeah, that defense is gonna need some work just finding guys to fill those gaps.
Yeah, you talk about that front seven, and really, it's the defensive line is going to be it's going to be tough. Your leading returner on your D line had 8 tackles last year, um, so no one with any real action, um, on D line there that got much game run. Low minority for us is going to be somewhere probably in the 30%. So 30% of all the players who played last year with 10 or more tackles are returning, and that's going to be a toughie. And being in this division, you better get it figured out quick, because there are some running backs in this division that are licking their lips thinking about the lack of defensive linemen that you're bringing back. Next up, the St. Mary Spires. Does feel weird to go from a 2-9 team to a 1-9 team, but hey, that's how SP Plus had them ordered. This was a St. Mary team that last year at this time we were kind of lauding here. Just not a great offensive year, down 23 spots to the 68th offense, and didn't have the defense to match, giving up almost 7 yards per play.
Yeah, definitely not what you want, especially when, we talk about running backs in this division. RJ Webster is gone. So the fact that your offense took a bit of a step back and now your main contributor there is now leaving. Thankfully, you do have Michael Gazana over there at wide receiver to throw to, who is definitely a very good talent for them and is coming back as a sophomore, like he's still young. So really good stuff from him that he's coming back. But yeah, your main running back being gone on an already diminished offense is not a good spot for you to be in on that side of the ball.
Yeah, it's hard losing almost 1,150 yards in a single contributor um, at any position, honestly, and that's what you had in R.J. Webster. Um, I guess the good news is that you do return most of your defense. Um, and so that was the weaker suit, but it didn't fall back as much as the offense did. Now it's got a chance to advance a little bit. You bring back all of your linebackers, most of your DBs, so that secondary should be pretty strong, and a high majority of your D linemen. So you should be good and stocked up front. But Matt, that offense, it all starts with quarterback, and you got to break basically a new one in with Eric Covington.
Mhm. It'll be there will be some things to sort out to begin their season. You got to really bank on that defense for them. But they looked competitive even last year in their 1-9 record. Like the metrics also reflect that a little bit. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where they go next year. Like you mentioned, with the rest of this part of the KCAC being a bit more top heavy than the Bissell was, you're gonna have to figure it out very quickly.
And you talk about having some pieces to put together. The next team, the Kansas Wesleyan Coyotes, still getting used to that. I don't know that I've ever seen, I'm trying to think, go back through my brain, a playoff team lose their coach before the playoffs.
Yeah. Not an ideal situation, I would say.
But you got a guy who is a Harding guy that is, royalty in their division, was quarterbacks coach for them, and you got a lot leaving, but you got a lot coming back, and by Jove, there are transfers out your ears.
Yeah, it's going to be a completely new team from the bottom up, but not actually completely, right? Like you still have a lot of these guys, including, goodness, three of your offensive linemen coming back. That is humongous.
That is huge, and they're bringing one in from Harding,
Mm.
so there's another one. Um, you know, and it always helps having a guy that's coming back that was almost a 1,500-yard rusher and had 2 kick return touchdowns. Luke Armstrong changes the numbers on the scoreboard.
Mhm. He's definitely the guy you're going to want to build this new phase of your program around, especially with him having at least one more year. I'm not sure about his other eligibility. I don't know if COVID eligibility or that is even a thing anymore. Um, but we'll see.
Yeah, and then leaving, you've got some work to do in the secondary. Quatama Massaquoi and James Preston leave there, but there are 3 DBs coming in on transfer that are going to help there. This is going to be one where you talk about disparate pieces, um, and some of these guys coming in January, some of them coming in over summer, some of them will step foot in fall. The guys who are stepping foot in fall, we did not just name because we, don't believe anything we hear about transfers that have not been on campus yet because it may or may not ever happen. Not just for Kansas Wesleyan, for literally everyone. It's just too variable. But there's that's going to be a work cut out for you if you're Matt Middleton. That's a lot of guys that you have secondarily recruited that were not your dudes out of high school that you're going to have to bring together and make a team out of, and that's a really tough road to hoe.
Yeah. Um, I'm not. I still have a bit to say on this team. Hint, hint. Um, but with all of these new pieces plugging into place with guys that have been there before, there's kind of a merging going on here. A lot of good things can come out of that, like you mentioned with Coach Middleton. Like he knows what he's doing. Harding is a very, very, very successful Division II program. You definitely want that experience and any guys that could potentially come with you from that. So
We'll be back with more here after a word from our friends at AdCraft.
So you want to create and sell custom merch for your team or business. That's exciting, but where do you begin? How much inventory should you order? How do you distribute orders? AdCraft has your answers. Streamline the way you offer custom merch by utilizing our risk-free web store service. We ship directly to each customer, and we have the fastest turnaround in the game. Raise funds for your team or get merch to your employees and patrons. Contact AdCraft today, and let's bring your merch to life.
They are fantastic. They are the experts in this field here. They are so good at doing it. They're intensely creative, which is I guess something that you would think about when you're talking about guys that are making shirts, but it's not something in the sports realm that we really come in contact with an awful lot. But they are intensely creative and NAI born and bred. Give them a holler for your web store and see what they can come up with to get you some great gear out to your fans. They'll handle all the customer service, all the shipping. Don't have to worry about a thing. They'll make it easy. Now, the top half of this darn division is stupid. This is ridiculous. And we start out with McPherson, who we have been telling you for 3 years they're coming. Well, they're still coming, but they bit some teams in the butt last year en route to an 8-3 record and a 26th rank in the SP Plus, 35th in Massey. I don't know that I can say that last year was their coming out party, but they certainly showed a lot of teams that they were there on business.
yeah, patting ourselves on the back there, I am totally fine with because we have been talking about this program for a few years, like you'd mentioned. And off the back of some really impressive stuff from Jalil Brown, who you do return, notably in that backfield, along with Traven Lewis Johnson out wide, first team all conference wide receiver that you're bringing back. Not necessarily everybody's coming back. You got to find somebody to throw to them and hand the ball off to them because your quarterback situation is going to be somebody fresh, somebody you haven't seen or not seen a lot of at least. White Smith with 10 passes on the year is your most experienced guy there. But you have the key pieces in place on offense. And I think the defensive side of the ball is super notable for how many guys you return on this squad.
Yeah, the one that I'll point out before we move on to kind of the larger picture is Nehemiah Figueroa. He was a player of the week for us last year, early on in the season, and was a good player throughout the season, putting up really good numbers. That's one you're going to miss as a guy that kind of flew around and did some things. But yeah, you've got some running backs, got some wide receivers. You just need a signal caller. We'll have to see what you're going to do. Defensively, I want to point this out. We arbitrarily set our minimum number of tackles at 10. And that's sort of, if you don't make 10 tackles in a season, you didn't see a whole lot of the field. And we have some teams that played, 16, 17, 20 guys max, really. 16, 17 is kind of on the low end. 26 kids had 10 or more tackles for McPherson. That is a lot. And so when we see this high majority, you've given a ton of kids. That's 70 to 80% of those 26 were freshmen, sophomore, juniors. You've given a ton of time to those guys on the field to get some run. That, to me, is a precursor to a good defense, is having that many guys get run.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we've seen even the close to the peak of what this defense is capable of offensively. I do worry a little bit about Jalil Brown probably being your main guy while you're figuring out your signal color. I think the NAI in the past few years, we've seen teams that really are running back heavy after a guy has a breakout year kind of slows back down because they have film and teams know what to expect. But if you can figure out
Words
the
are hard.
signal color situation, words are very hard. You'll have other weapons at your disposal. You have a first team all conference wide receiver coming back. You have an athlete you can put anywhere on the field. Obviously, tight end wise, you're going to be missing a first team all conference guy there, but with the way that the defense plugs guys in, like there are probably a few guys on the offensive side of the ball that are going to be able to do that for year two. I'm really excited to see kind of how this team develops next year, especially defensively. I will have my eyebrow raised about the offense until we see who's calling the shots on the field there.
Hey, Matt, you like running the football?
Yeah.
How about a team that did it 700 plus times last year?
Would it be the school that's behind me?
It would.
In my background? Okay. Yeah.
It would be. Friends University. That's a great. There's a lot of teams that you can say, oh man, Matt, you went to DWU. I went to FSU. There's not a whole lot who can say I went to FU.
But it's friends. That's
But
what
it's
the
friends.
F stands for.
It's friendly.
Friends you.
For as good a year as Friends had last year, they were down 2 spots in SP Plus. I still maintain that they got jobbed in 23. The league kind of learned their offense a little bit, but their defense made up for it. 7.5 yards per play from a team that ran the ball, I think, like 757 times. Yeah. That's absurd. That's emasculating. That's glorious, and that's flex bone football.
It's real football.
At its finest,
Cory.
the way God intended. And this team was hampered down the stretch by the fact that Cavante Baker was hurt and couldn't heave the football. He could only run it.
Yeah. But he definitely made up for it with how efficient he was on the ground. I mean, 1,200 plus yards, plus the fact that you bring back a first team all conference running back and a first team all conference fullback and 2 first team all conference linemen. I mean, my goodness, dude, I feel like I'm talking about Dort. Like, this is how we usually talk about Dort. You know what I mean?
1,225 yards from your quarterback, 876 from your running back. That's 2,000.
It's a lot.
And then 740 from your fullback. That's,
Sure.
2,700 yards from 3 guys. That's stupid.
It's also 37 touchdowns between them. I think we should mention that.
That's amazing. I love this. I love this so much.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Now, to be fair, you are missing Jet Cheatham, who was the passing quarterback the back part of the year, along with being a guy who ran the football and caught the football. As a gadget player, that's a big loss. And, those flex phone teams like their gadget players.
They do. They love them.
So what does that mean then here? As you see, you've lost an all-conference guy at each level, plus your kicker. Still got high majority here. And that bodes well for Friends. This is Terry Harrison's third season, and he's taken Friends from perennial cellar dweller into very possibly a top 10 starting, at least top 15 starting program.
Yeah, this team is going to be ridiculous next season. I have always been very bullish on this squad since a few years ago, since we saw the gears kind of turn for them. But man, they are in a really good spot going into next year. I would not be surprised if this is a team that's in the top 10 for like most of the season.
Oh,
truthfully.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the crazy part is we give them all that praise, and then there's another team.
Yeah.
And that's because Southwestern had a really freaking good squad. The fact that you had two KCAC teams in the top 15 in SP Plus speaks to how much this conference has grown. We had seen Kansas Wesleyan do all this sorts of high-flying stuff 6, 7, 8 years ago, but there was never another team there with them. What Friends has done and what Southwestern has done is phenomenal. Brad Griffin entering his 10th season. He is now the all-time winningest coach at Southwestern after last year. And what a great year. 6th overall in SP+, 12th in Massey, the 7th best defense by SP+, giving up less than 4 yards per play. You go up 21 spots in SP+, on the back of 16 spots on defense, or 16 spots on offense and 19 on defense. What a year. My gosh.
Yeah, and it was, like you said, off the back of an incredible defensive unit, which definitely, like, you saw it as we got into the postseason. Like, they were just suffocating. And you bring back a lot of those guys. Now, granted, you lose a few pieces along the way, but notably, right in the middle there, Isaiah Yuta, pretty much the leader of your defense is coming back. A guy who's super efficient in the middle of the field for you at the linebacker position. And on top of that, on the offensive side of the ball, you bring back 2 all-conference receivers.
That's 27 touchdowns there and about 1,600 yards. And that is really, really important because you're losing your quarterback who threw for 3,000 yards last year, completed 2/3 his passes, and ran for 300-plus yards. And you're losing 13, almost 1,400 yards of rushing offense from Jarius Burnett and Martez Jones.
Yeah, they're definitely offensively going to have to find a new identity. Like, that's just straight up how it is. You replace so many of those guys. But you're going to be able to bank on your defense. Like we talked about earlier, they were just so good that with all the pieces they bring back, this will definitely still be a top team in this conference. Brad Griffin, like you mentioned, has just done a fantastic job. And they'll be able to lean on their defense again next year. They will probably have another top 10 defensive unit. And if you can bring the offense along with you, this is a scary team again.
Look, Brad Griffin always seems to have a quarterback or two in his back pocket, just pulling them out of nowhere. Remember there was a year, 2 or 3 ago, where he had like 3 guys that each played like a third of a season because they all got hurt, and still made the playoffs. That's an accomplishment. You're going to be fine. Is Carson Riney the guy? We don't know. He might be. We'll find out, because I do trust that whoever Coach Griffin rolls out there is going to be a dude that is able to run that offense. And plus, like you said, you've got 2 all-conference wide receivers to throw to. When it's one, la-di-da, you can double him and take him out of the offense. But you got 2. Now we have problems on defending both sides of the field. If you try to run some concepts where you're going to put them on the same side of the field, put one in the slot, it really opens up your playbook and makes the defense to kind of have to be run kind of like an option offense does when you've got two guys like that. The question is honestly at quarterback, are you going to have a guy that's going to be able to do that, a guy that knows that playbook? We don't know. We haven't seen it. Yeah, that defense is good though. So, I mean, it's a two-horse race, I think. At the end of the day, it's going to be close between Friends and Southwestern, and honestly, for the fact that Friends is bringing back their quarterback and healthy, I've got to give them that billing there. I think they're going to win it outright this year. The growth there in Wichita is scary. How fast they've come around. Matt, who you got?
I gotta give you a big old FU, Cory.
Thank you, Matt. I
You bet.
appreciate that.
Anything for you, man. Yeah, Friends. I mean, they're the background of this episode for me for a reason. I love triple option programs. I love programs that do funky stuff like that and have a fun time doing it. And Cavante Baker, man, dude's a baller. I'm really excited to see him this season and what they can get done.
All right. Hear me out on my dark horse.
Okay, I'm listening.
I know they were good last year, and I know they were bottom part of the top 25, but dadgummit, give me McPherson. I don't think they're done yet. I think you're going to see a lot more out of them this year than you did last year. This is a team that I could feasibly see being a two-loss team, and those two losses being Friends and Southwestern. Give me Friends. I don't think they're or give me Friends to win and give me McPherson as a dark horse. I don't know that they're in position to win it yet, but I still think they're enough of an unknown quantity to qualify as a dark horse.
Yeah, in my brain, I think McPherson is like an outside looking in, could win the conference on kind of a, a lot of things would have to go their way, but like they could get it done. I don't consider them a dark horse. And you'll notice, Cory, I wasn't too harsh on you because I have to defend my dark horse pick being Kansas Wesleyan. Notably won their side of the KCAC last year, notably a playoff team. But in my defense, no, you have to hear me out, okay?
All right.
First year head coach and a good chunk of turnover between guys transferring, leaving, whatever. And a lot of people don't really know what to make of this team under a new identity. And I think with how scary kind of the top part of this conference is, I wouldn't be surprised if there are a lot of people counting Kansas. I would tell you you're being a bit silly by counting them out.
That's fair. One thing we didn't mention is they're bringing in Henry Ostad from Southeastern, who gave Kaiser every bit of what they wanted, gave St. Thomas every bit of what they wanted. That's not a bad person to slot in there.
Not at all. And I think it is notable because I feel like in my mind, we have our clear cut two at the top. I think Kansas Wesleyan and McPherson are both going to be nipping at their heels the entire season. I wouldn't be surprised if both of these teams get a win on one of those top two squads. Like they are both good enough, and like if I were a bet man, I'd be putting some money down on that. Seriously, I think both these squads are good enough to get some wins.
Give me some frontier level chaos over here.
Maybe not. Let's not do that. Actually, I take that back. I hope Friends goes undefeated and we have no issues. Thank you.
So where does this slot in? We've been talking about all these good teams. Well, they take the average SP plus out from the Frontier by a full 6 spots per team. This is kind of scary in that we are more than halfway through this, and the KCAC had the best year last year, or a conference with the best year last year, based on average SP+. That is not something I would have ever uttered 5 years ago.
And here we are.
And here we are. And then standard deviation. Now, yes, it's not as good. It's 28, almost 29. There's worse. Overall, that slots them in within shouting distance of the Frontier. That's kind of insane, thinking back to where we were 5 years ago, that the conference strength with a little over half of the divisions noted has 2 KCAC teams in the top 3. Furthermore, this means that at least one of the divisions will be top half at worst. I keep saying how much the KCAC has grown, and I still think people undervalue it. That's insane. That's the most jarring statistic I think I've seen there. And so we come to the end of another NAIF Ball podcast. And we thank you for joining us and allowing us to tell you dark horses that may or may not be, and jarring statistics and going off on rabbit trails.
Look, okay, we've picked some far out ones. I think we've
That's
both
true.
earned a nice 7-8 win team as our dark horse pick.
Dang, Skippy. And when they do good, we'll sit here.
Yep.
But the people who support us and allow us to do that are our patrons. If you enjoy what we do, please consider joining our Patreon. It helps do the keeping us going part of the business. It's not for these guys. The bills don't get paid. We're so thankful that they step in, and it's not as flashy as a title sponsor or sponsors of a poll or a section of the live show, but they do it every week. They get a little extra for their trouble too. We do Patreon only live stream, Patreon only watch alongs and stuff like that. It's super fun. Those patrons are, you know what? I'm going to go from the bottom. Haven't done that in a minute. Midwest Sports Net. Tim Burrow, Coca Nicholas, Joey Breckel, Ian Brookshire, USF Sucks, Jason Garnon, Derek Lowers, Chris, Carol C. Suggs, Casey Willison, Zach Lance, Sean Chamberlain, Todd Nix, Charles A. Flowers, Jason Crawford, Ryan, Nathan Moore, Julie Lout, Stephen Cutler, Nate Soapbeer, Julian Shager, Brian Shake, Steve Speakman, Justin Hoffman, Tyler Pierce, Kyle Gregory, Nick Ryan, Marty Seabolt, Ace Wellen, Fred Christensen, Jeremy Vobble, Roger Meyer, Bob Boone, and the OG DSU Cone. Matt, next week we have the division that could just upset the conference that could upset the entire conference strength apple cart. The back-to-back reigning champs of the conference strength-o-meter, the Mid-South. But they were a bit down last year. Can they make it 3 for 3? Yeah, we'll have to see. It's gonna be hard. But thank you for joining us again. We will be back next week, like we said, with the Mid-South. And until then, we will see you on the Twitter feed.